Are you not talking to me?
No, you're cool. You got here on time.
You just gave me the Queen's wave.
No, I just said, what's up?
Okay.
You and Zubin could talk about Thanksgiving, and I already gave Zubin my Thanksgiving take. And,
Jay's back. His Giants have won 3 in a row, and it's great to have you back. We're all whole again. Thanks, after about 5 days off. Absolutely. I mentioned that NFL history of the worst variety was made yesterday. Listen to this before we bring in the front office insider Mike Tannenbaum to help us decipher what in the world this team can do. The Broncos yesterday, I'm sure you saw this, they had to play with Kendall Hinton at quarterback, a guy that hadn't played quarterback since his college days, with the Broncos 4 quarterbacks all on their roster, either testing positive for the coronavirus and Jeff Driscoll, or the 3 others in close contact, with Brett Rippon, Drew Lock, and Blake Bortles unable to go. I'm sure you heard about it. Broncos, second team in the last 20 years, fellas, to finish with 0 or 1 completions in a game. And they were the first team with more passes picked off than completed. Think about that for a second. More passes picked than completed since the Chargers back in 1998. Key, I'll give you one guess who the quarterback was back then for the Chargers in 1998.
Well, it's Phillip Rivers.
Ryan Leaf.
Oh, was it?
1998.
Oh, 98, yeah, Ryan Leaf.
Quick history lesson. It was against the Chiefs.
You said interception charges. My mind went right to Phillip Rivers.
He's been there forever.
You said it with conviction, though. I respect that.
Yeah, I was charged Phillip Rivers.
Quick little note, and I'm sure Mike will remember this. This was a game against the Kansas City Chiefs, a division rival. It was pouring at this game. And that was the first game where you saw Leaf come a little unhinged. And maybe this isn't exactly going to be the Peyton Manning-Leaf comparison we thought of. It was a unbelievable day in the rain 22 years ago. Unbelievable Sunday. Let's bring in Mike Tannenbaum joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, brought to you by Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. Mike, I want you to hear this from Vic Fangio, the Broncos head coach, saying he was disappointed in his quarterback room, but then he shared some other disappointment.
Well, I was disappointed on a couple levels in that our quarterbacks put us in this position. Our quarterbacks put the league in that position. We count on them to be the leaders of the team and, leaders of the offense. And those guys made a mistake, and that is disappointing. Obviously, I haven't done a good enough job of selling the protocols to them, when they're on their own. So, part of that could fall on me there.
Mike, good morning. Broncos President Joe Ellis, Executive Vice President John Elway had to deal with this over the last 48, 72 hours, something that you had to deal with as a front office guy. Whatever comes onto the desk, I got to deal with. Who's most to blame for this fiasco?
I think Coach Fangio has it right. There's 2 aspects here. One is your quarterbacks. As Key knows, Coach Parcells always talks about quarterback. I want battlefield commanders. I want guys that are going to absorb blame and deflect credit. And that's exactly what didn't happen over the last 72 hours. I like what Drew Lock finally said yesterday afternoon, but the rules are the rules. And I'm sure the league looked at this, and while on one hand, guys, they were disappointed, on the other hand, I'm sure they said this is an opportunity that if everyone sees what happens to Denver, we'll have complete compliance moving forward. And I want to make one other really important point. Where was the competitiveness of the Denver Bronco defense? That Bronco defense played great against a good Miami team the week before, and what they should have said is, hey, we're playing a backup quarterback. We're playing Taysom Hill. And if the Saints can't score, this game will be 0-0. So let's put our foot in the ground. We know there was a mistake made on the other side, but what do we stand for as a Bronco defense? And to me, that was massively disappointing, and that was a great example of human nature. They went in the game expecting to lose, and that's exactly what happened.
Mike, should that game have been postponed? Should they have moved it, postponed it?
Key, it's interesting. I went back and forth. Originally, I said yes because – look, you're going to a game where, unless something weird happens, it's going to be really hard for one team to win. And really, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, those are the teams that are most affected by this. Denver's probably out of the playoffs, but New Orleans is competing with all those other teams, and the Saints or Green Bay may get that 1 seed, and there's only one team that gets a bye, so is it really fair to them? But again, on the other hand, if I'm Roger Goodell and I'm sitting back and saying, here were the rules, here were the protocols, you made the mistake, I didn't, doesn't it send the right message for the next 2 months that you have to be compliant? And I think the league in some ways saw this as an opportunity where we saw the league have flexibility with the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game that's been postponed twice. So I think in the end, the league got it right. And I think Vic Fangio, to his credit, got it right, which is, hey, Drew Lock, you want to be this multi-million-dollar leader, you want to be the face of the franchise, do the little things right.
When you look at it, some teams around the league, Philadelphia Eagles, for instance, had a quarterback that they kind of kept on the couch at home and paid money to. The Buffalo Bills have a quarterback in a similar situation. So the other teams around the league kind of adopt that same situation?
Absolutely. And I think what you can do now with technology is to say this quarterback will go to all the Zoom meetings. You're going to have a strength and conditioning coach closely monitor their condition, because I think that's one aspect of the story that people didn't realize, which was like, hey, can you sign somebody off the streets and just plug them in? You don't even know if they're in condition. So I think that's something we're going to see more teams do this week in terms of sign a player, make sure they're in the right condition, have them go to the meeting so at least they can function in a game. So, Kendall Hilton, while it was a great story on the one hand, on the other hand, he had no chance to be successful because he didn't even have the reps in terms of a walkthrough on a Friday and a Saturday. They just had to put him in there. So I think we're going to see more teams do that over the next month.
No, that is correct. I was telling the guys here, I believe, and you could correct me because you were with me, I believe in 99, we lost a couple quarterbacks, including Vinny Testaverde, and the week of, I had to be the emergency quarterback, so I got a chance to see some things just in case I would have had to play. I was at practice. I was a part of the situation where this kid didn't really get a chance to do that at all.
Hey, Mike, the Titans dominated the Colts. Derrick Henry, 27 carries, 178 yards, 3 touchdowns. Why isn't his name in the MVP conversation like we're talking about Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, Jay Will, it should be. He was the best player on the field yesterday. And what Tennessee can do is they can throw it over your head. And you look at 2 big passes to A.J. Brown as well as Corey Davis for 37 yards to Corey Davis. And what Tennessee can do is they can really spread you out because Tannehill can get the ball down the field. And then you let Derrick Henry go to work. 3 touchdowns yesterday. And maybe the other player that should be in the MVP candidates discussion should be DeForest Buckner. The Colts give up double yards per carry when he's not on the field. So Derrick Henry was the best player on the field. Tannehill was a great compliment with deep passes, and the Colts cannot stop the run without DeForest Buckner.
What should we make of this Jalen Hurts taking reps with the first team?
Key, best players play. And right now, Carson Wentz remarkably is struggling with confidence. We go back a week ago to that pick 6 against Cleveland. That play, to me, exemplified what's wrong with Carson Wentz. He lacks confidence. Earlier in that play, he had a player wide open down the seam. He couldn't pull the trigger. And maybe competition at practice will spark him. And I think tonight is truly a watershed moment. He has to play better. He's on national TV. He's going against a terrible defense in Seattle. This is a great opportunity for him. I think what Doug Peterson is right. The best players should play.
Mike, what do you make of the whole Ravens situation?
Well, again, when you juxtapose what's going on with Denver, I think they got it right, which is the league is at least giving them a couple of days to see who tested positive, who's going to be in quarantine. Now, look, one door closes, Lamar Jackson's going to be out, another door opens, RG3. I'm sure in the back of RG3's mind, Jay Will, he's saying to himself, I deserve to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And could you imagine if tomorrow night, with all these backups, missing players like Mark Andrews and countless others, if RG3 goes into Pittsburgh against an undefeated team and comes out with a win, do you realize the amount of money he can make and change the narrative of his career, that maybe he could be a starter again? So those are the storylines that I love about our game. And that's why I think tomorrow night will be really interesting. Let's get RG3's A game and let's see what happens.
Mike, we had a chance to watch Sunday night's football game, which really wasn't Sunday night's football game. I'm talking about the Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs, because the Chicago Bear game was not even close to Sunday night football. What should we be concerned about in terms of Buccaneer fans?
Yeah, what's really obvious, unfortunately, is Tom Brady's really struggling getting the ball down the field. Right now, he's 26th in the NFL when the ball travels 20 yards or more. So if we know that, we know opposing teams' defensive coordinators know that. They have to be able to get the ball to the running backs and the tight ends consistently in the running game. We know that's where Tom Brady excels. And Ronald Jones from, of course, USC Key, made a great play in the passing game. They need to do more of that. That's where Tom Brady's great, controlling the middle of the field, play action. That's his game. And right now, their defense is still playing well despite what happened yesterday. They're third in the league in defensive efficiency. They got to get this passing game right, because they're still in the thick of things. They have 7 wins, and their season's far from over, but they got to get that fixed quickly.
Thick of things is right. This year, there are 7 teams in each conference that'll make the playoffs right now. The Bucs, as Mike mentioned, with 7 wins, sit in the 6th spot, but the schedule isn't particularly easy down the stretch. Mike, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
All
right, thanks, guys.
Want to quickly mention, Mike said, Commissioner Goodell threw it down. Folks, it's November 30th. Go back to October 13th. This is Goodell. This is in a memo to every team. This is why the Broncos were in the position they were in. Warning teams, games would not be rescheduled if, quote, simply to avoid roster issues caused by injury or illness affecting multiple players, even within a position group. It took 12 weeks to get there, but Goodell said, when we get there, don't ever make it